to become a peer reviewer for the U.S. Department of Education's Investing in Innovation program. There's a nice disclaimer at the bottom of the PowerPoint that this presentation is intended for information purposes only, that the I3 program is a U.S. Department of Education grant program, and that peer reviewer selection is completed by the department, and that GOH Guardians of Honor, the organization which I represent, that we do not score, select, nor do we endorse reviewers for or on behalf of the Department of Education. However, Guardians of Honor is a professional services firm, and we do support the grants management activities in the United States federal government, also at the Department of Education, and we work with the I3 program currently. So I'll give everyone a brief overview about Guardians of Honor, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the Ed I3 program, and then we'll dive into how to become a peer reviewer and the steps that all of us can take to become more informed about what programs we're well suited for. And then we'll open up the conversation for some question and answers and discussions. So Guardians of Honor is a little over 16 years old. We specialize in research and analysis, information technology, management, and evaluation. Our primary customers are federal government agencies, but we also work with nonprofits and research organizations. This is just a selected listing of some of our current clients and partners who we work with and who we work for. A lot of the work that we do involves discretionary grant program management, program evaluation, and digital libraries and digital learning. So about the U.S. Department of Education Investing in Innovation program, the program was initially, and you know what, let me just pull up some slides here myself. I have my notes somewhere else, sorry. So the Investing in Innovation program, it builds a portfolio of different solutions to address key challenges in education across the United States. It aligns the amount of funding with the level of evidence, and it aims explicitly to scale effective programs by creating a pipeline of funding for effective programs. And it provides funding for required independent evaluation in order to build a common understanding of what works in education. The I3 program was designed to generate and to validate solutions to persistent educational challenges. The central design element of the program is its multi-tier structure that links the amount of funding that an applicant may receive to the quality of evidence supporting the efficacy of the proposed project. Applicants proposing practices supported by limited evidence can receive relatively smaller grant amounts that support the development and initial evaluation of promising practices. And applicants proposing practices supported by evidence from rigorous evaluations can receive more sizable grants to support expansion across the nation. The structure provides incentives for applicants to build evidence of effectiveness of their proposed projects and to address the barriers to serving more students across schools, districts, and states so that applicants can compete for more sizable grants. As importantly, all I3 projects are required to generate additional evidence of effectiveness through an independent evaluation of their project. And this ensures that the projects funded under the I3 program contribute significantly to improving the information available about which practices work and which types of students and in what contexts. So there's 3 different types of grant competitions, and these are related to the amount of funding and the amount of evidence. One is the development competition, which has a pre-application and a full application competition, and then the validation and the scale-up competitions. Since 2010, the program has invested over $1 billion in federal funding to 117 different grant projects that seek to provide innovative challenges to common educational challenges. Innovative solutions to common education challenges. And this is each year the program's priorities do change. So on this screen you'll see a listing of the FY14 absolute priorities. So improving the effectiveness of teachers or principals, improving low performing schools, implementing college and career ready standards, improving academic outcomes for students with disabilities, improving academic outcomes for English learners, improving STEM education, promoting the effective use of technology, and serving rural communities. This slide has a bunch of very helpful links. The I3 website, I don't know. Am I allowed to click on these, John?
Say that again, Rebecca.
Am I allowed to click on these links to show people what's on them, or that won't work?
No, it won't work. I'm only sharing that presentation, and it won't show your
Okay.
actual
Screen.
screen.
Okay. So on the I3 website, it describes all of the programs, what they have done, evidence. It has program documentation. And then if you want to see the latest updates on where the current competitions are, you can find information about what applications have been submitted and what absolute priorities and things of that nature on the 2014 competitions page. And then the next link is a link to the I3 call for peer reviewers, and we'll talk more about what ED call for peer reviewers are on the coming slides and how to respond to them effectively. And then it's also good to sign up for the I3 distribution list. There's a lot of, I love the Department of Education and the I3 distribution list. They provide a lot of just-in-time information, not just about what's going on at the department, but what's going on in education policy in general. Um, and then, so how to apply to become a peer reviewer. So the first thing to do is the first thing to do when you're thinking about applying to become a peer reviewer is to become very familiar with the ED programs and the priorities. So not just in general what are the programs, but more specifically, what are the programs targeting this year? So for those who just joined, we were talking about absolute priorities on the previous slides, and just making sure that when you're getting ready to apply, that you search for programs that have priorities that are actually aligned with your expertise, not just submitting, you know, basic information about general expertise, really doing some research. So you can find additional information on Ed Grant funding at the first link, and then the second link provides the actual grant forecast for each given year. So right now the 2014 grant forecast is up, and you can view those notices inviting applicants, which are currently active, at the third link. Usually it's a good idea if you look at the grant forecast and you apply to become a peer reviewer, either right before or pretty close to when the NIA is published, because that's when the department is actively seeking reviewers. They'll still seek reviewers up through when the NIA closes, but a lot of the sourcing is happening before then. So once you become familiar with the different grant programs and you identify a program for which you can contribute some expertise, then you can start searching for that program's call for reviewers or call for peer reviewers. So you can use a keyword search on the ED homepage, in parentheses, in quotations, call for reviewers, call for peer reviewers, and the particular program that you're interested, you can find the program's homepage. You can bookmark that page and make sure to check back a few months before the NIA closes. Generally, an NIA, a notice inviting applicants, they have different time periods for response, but a lot of them are approximately 45 days. And then if you see that a program is on the grant forecast, but there's not currently a call for peer reviewers, you can always email the program and ask for additional information regarding when that call for peer reviewers is going to be published. And then I apologize that I can't access this link, but the program, particularly the I3 program right here, they have very detailed instructions about what you need to do to register in the department's G5 system. The G5 system is connected to grants.gov. It's what the Department of Education uses to pull information into their agency systems from grants.gov. So reviewers will go and they will register in there, and it's really important that you keep your profile in G5 updated with areas of expertise that most closely align to the current competition's absolute priority areas. So as we mentioned before, the priority areas are going to change each year, and making sure that you're speaking to what they need that year is really important to being selected as a peer reviewer. And then once you have your account in G5, you need to make sure that you are monitoring your email account that you entered into the G5 system. So a lot of us have, 3 or 4 email accounts, and you might forget which one you've entered into the G5 system. It's really important that you keep that information somewhere, because it's a pretty common issue from the grants management contractor side that we'll reach out to reviewers using the email address that they've entered into the G5 system after the department selects them, and we either can't contact them, or the email goes to the junk or the spam mailbox and they aren't able to respond in time. So just knowing about the time frame when the particular programs that you're interested in reviewing for are going to be sourcing you, and making sure that you're monitoring your email account daily, especially, and even your junk and your spam email box. Usually sourcing happens right before and right after the NIA close date. So those are the times to pay particularly close attention. And a lot of times it's going to be a contractor that will reach out to you on behalf of the department. Most programs at the department have various contractors who assist them with the logistics and administrative aspects of their peer review process. So it's not going to be coming from an ed.gov account. For instance, we work on a team that's led by Longevity Consulting, so a lot of the emails will be coming from, let's say, I3 at longevityconsulting.com. So that's another thing to be aware of. And then that is really the gist of the presentation. I will open up people's microphones now, so we can have a discussion, since we only have a limited number of attendees today. All right, so we have Benita and Irfan.
If you don't have a mic, you can also just use the chat room to type a question.
So all of the programs at the department are in, none of them really do it all the same. But so there's 3 types of reviews. Some are fully electronic. Some are a hybrid of electronic, but then paper applications are also mailed to the reviewers. And then they participate in the panel discussions remotely via teleconference. And then there's a small number which are still done on site at the in Washington D.C., close to the Department of Education. And then the period of review clearly also varies, but in the instance of I3, generally there's at least a 1 week reading period where you can review your applications. And then that's followed by a very full week of panel calls, which occur Monday or, in a 5 day period, let's say Monday through Friday. The calls are scheduled for 3 hours each day. And then there's a reading schedule that's assigned. So during the reading period, you review all of the applications or proposals. You make your initial comments and scores, and then there's an in-panel reading period where during each of those 3 hour discussions, the panel moderator, who's a representative from the Department of Education, and then the panel of 3 to 5 peer reviewers discusses their comments and scores to particular applications, and then they generally reach a consensus regarding the scores and the comments, and then they move on from there. Once that week of reading period and the week of the panel calls is over, there's usually about another week to 7 business days where there could be some comment revisions. One thing to keep in mind with the I3 program, and I don't know how much it differs from other programs, but because it's such a high value program at the department, is very visible, that everything is posted on their websites. After the peer review, there's a lot of effort to make sure that the reviewers' comments appropriately represent their scores. So there will be a period where those comments and scores are revised before they're posted online. Does that answer your question? And I imagine you're probably also interested in the volume and the length of the application. So there's four different application competitions that require peer reviewers for the I3 program. The development pre-application competition, those proposals are generally shorter because they're a pre-application, they're not a full application, and they range from about 25 pages to about 50. Some people still submit appendices, and there may be 1 or 2 applications that's 200 pages, but most of them are shorter. And then the scale-up validation and development applications are fuller applications, and they range from about 200 pages to about 1,000 pages, with the 1,000 pages being a lot of appendices and supporting and collateral materials. And then the reimbursement structure is a per application reviewed structure currently, and that or honorarium amount is relative to the number of pages within each competition. So reviewers who review applications in the pre-application competition, they might review 20 applications and they get paid a lesser amount, whereas reviewers for the scale-up validation and development competitions might review only 10 applications, but then they get paid a higher amount per application for that review. You are very welcome. So when you say how many applications in each step, do you mean in each competition?
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, but I think probably it is easier just to
Yes,
speak.
I can
So
hear you.
I was just thinking about, let's say, yeah. So let's just talk about that, that developmental first category, generally speaking. So in each category, let's just talk about that.
Oh, so do you mean for like the absolute priority categories?
Right, right.
Okay, so that is a good question, and it significantly differs. Some of the priorities are newer priorities, and so for instance, promoting the effective use of technology and improving STEM education
Mm-hmm.
were added later. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
that's one reason why um, the department has a particular need for reviewers in those areas, because
Mm-hmm.
and they're newer department wide, so a lot of times um,
Mm-hmm.
programs within the Department of Education will use pools of reviewers who have already reviewed for other programs. When they
Mm-hmm.
have a need, when they have a quick turnaround need, they'll say, okay, who has used reviewers before in this area, and they can pull reviewers that way. But these two areas, they're newer, so it's harder to do that, and it's traditionally reviewers with expertise in STEM education, the effective use of technology, are not always as attracted to Department of Education peer reviews as are reviewers with expertise in improving the effectiveness of teachers or principals, improving low performing schools. They're very naturally aligned with the department. So right now, in particular, but in policy, there's a lot going on in education with improving STEM education and promoting the effective use of technology. So there's kind of a misalignment of the number of reviewers and the number of applications that are coming in. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, yes. I think it gives me some sense because
There's also, I can't hear you, but so I'll just keep talking because I think there may have been one other question that you had. So within each of these competitions, so, for instance, the development competition historically receives as many as 600, the pre-application as many as 600 applications, whereas a full application competition receives much less. And the validation, because there's a higher level of evidence that's required for to be eligible to apply, the validation and then also the scale up competitions receive many less applications. Each of them may not receive even 100 applications, validation and scale up each year. And then the department, so the competition schedule for I3 this year, the pre-application competition proposals have already been submitted and scored, and that peer review, the panels have been completed. Currently, the validation and the scale-up competitions are getting ready to source and secure reviewers. I would have to go back and check the actual close date, but I think that the notice inviting applicants is closing on June 24th for those applications. And then the actual panels will happen in mid to late July. That's when they'll start. And then the development full application, I believe that starts later in August or September, so that the development full application competition has not begun to source or secure reviewers, but validation and scale up are beginning to. It hasn't actually started yet, but it should be in the next week or so. So those two, validation, scale up, and development, would be good competitions to apply to. You are very welcome. Oh, great. All right, so then just to recap very quickly for you, Benita, the key steps that you want to make sure to do is to review, make sure that you review the absolute priority areas for the competitions that you're interested in applying to, and make sure that when you are registering in the G5 system that you're expressing your expertise that aligns to those absolute priority areas in particular. The G5 system, as I'm sure you've seen, it has very standard drop downs. So that's why the guidance is to express the expertise which most closely aligns to the particular program's expertise, because it's not going to be an exact fit. Great. All right, so this webinar has been recorded and it's going to be made available via the Lsmce website. Here is, oops, my contact information is available on the last slide, and everyone can feel free to reach out if they have particular questions regarding the content of the slides, or if I can be of any assistance directing you to appropriate resources within the Department of Education's website. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'll make this available in the next day or two and put it up.
Sounds great.
You too, Benita. Thank you. No problem. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close it up now.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Rebecca.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
Bye.